Episode of Subscription Radio. I'm your host, DJ Fish, aka Ben Fisher, and with me I have the one, the only, the Charlie Tishner. Like, round of applause. For those of y'all who don't know, Charlie is a partner at Underoutfit, apparel, or I'd say undergarments D2C brand, and founder of Disruptor School. He is top 100 Facebook advertiser, as well as, from what I gathered on the internet, early creator involvement in a lot of the algorithms that have gone into Facebook advertising. And so, Charlie's worked everywhere, from both on the brand side as well as obviously also as an instructor and growth marketer. So thank you for coming on the show, man. Excited to have you.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm stoked about this. This is I love talking about all of this stuff, and yeah, been there since the very early days, back when CPMs were like $1 and Facebook was a PPC platform and things like targeting actually mattered. And we no longer live in that world, just like we don't use dial up the internet anymore. But I'm here to help folks see more success and less stress, because 90% of what people have to say is completely wrong, mainly because those people have no idea what they're talking about. So as the guy that helped build how it works and has done well over $1 billion in revenue and driven, sales from Facebook alone, let's make this easy.
Let's get it. Well, and then I think that's a great segue into what you and I were starting to talk about prior to starting the show, which was like, what are the things that people are doing that are either an enormous waste of time or are actually misleading them? I think A/B testing is one that's come up in conversations with brands and marketers over the last couple months. For me, it's like a lot of just sort of almost like rage over this idea that people are A/B testing things, and actually it's sample size, or they're doing things and there's external variables, and it's like they're literally like you're taking the wrong thing from it. So maybe you can kind of walk us through what are the biggest mistakes you're seeing, and what are the things sort of like your top 10?
No, I love it. Top 10. I mean, let me go top 3 and we'll
okay. Three is good.
Keep count. We'll keep count. We'll throw up some fingers and we'll knock ourselves out, right? So number 1, you're saying people creative test completely the wrong way. Mm-hmm. They treat Facebook, which is an optimized CPM environment, as though it was email or display, which is an inventory and supply and demand-based environment. It's completely different technology with a completely different business objective, and the way that you test inside of it is completely different. I mean, Google's number 1 objective is that you search for something and you get off Google as quick as possible. Facebook's the number 1 objective is to keep you on Facebook for as long as possible. If the business models are completely different and the way the unit economics work, the way the tech is designed is completely different, why would you think that testing in the same way makes any sense at all? Objectively, completely ridiculous. So that's number 1. Number 2, people think targeting matters or is a good thing. So people are using interest groups and audiences and retargeting, which in Facebook makes no sense. Because 1, I don't think they know how targeting actually works. They don't know how interest groups function. They think there's actually somebody helping interest groups write the code. The tech team hasn't existed for over 5 years. Again, you might as well be using a dial-up modem to access the internet. What are you doing? Paying more money to make sure the majority of the people that want to see your ads don't. Or using a 1% lookalike to make sure that 99% of the best people are excluded. That's so dumb. So that you can invest heavily in depreciating assets. I'm going to get rich by buying high and selling low. That's dumb. Number 3, people think that they're smarter than the machine and try to focus on controlling where money goes. If you're trying to control by audience, where your money is going, you're treating Facebook as though it was random distribution inside of an audience, which, to be fair, it absolutely was until 2017. And that was part of the advanced matching test. It's the brain behind broad targeting. And basically, if you are trying to control that this much money goes to a test or this much money goes to an audience, you're using Facebook as though it was not Facebook. It makes no sense. It'd be like trying to use a clutch on an automatic transmission or bring in a baseball mitt to a football game. It's objectively stupid, but a lot of folks that do the rain dance at their used car salesman lot that like get rich by trying to convince people that they're the reason a hurricane happened, and they signed really good clients who don't need them, and they're now like the face of how a lot of this industry works, like real small dick energy at the top. Like they'll tell you that happens because they have no idea what they're doing. Number 4, because we're already getting down on this list here, right? So number 4, I think another thing that people focus in on is they measure all the wrong metrics. They think things like ROAS is a real number. Let's just make ROAS number 4. They think ROAS is a legitimate number. Objectively speaking, it's a bad version of make-believe. It's trying to like weigh the dreams of a unicorn. ROAS is a fraction, right? So the numerator is what? Attributed revenue. The denominator is what? Spend. So the numerator, the attributed revenue, do we trust attribution? No. Is the revenue complete? Is it holistic or incremental? No and no. Is it predictive of future behavior? No. Can you control how much money people spend and thus make decisions for the future? No. All right. So the top of the fraction is a bunch of numbers that we have no confidence in, that lack any context or actionability. So let's divide that by a number: spend. Was it on this ad set, this campaign, this platform, today, this week, this month? We can divide it any number of ways that you want to. The point is, it will never be holistic, because what if somebody just comes to your site anyway and you never spend anything? What if you're spending on more than one platform? Well, now that number is completely inaccurate. So it's metrics you don't trust divided by numbers that aren't accurate. Mm-hmm. And if you think that's a valuable measurement tool to make decisions, the reason your business will fail has nothing to do with Facebook. And I really think there are 2 types of marketers in the world: the folks that can easily explain to you why ROAS is terrible, and the folks you should never trust with your money because they don't know how business works. ROAS ultimately is a sales pitch invented by folks about 30 years ago to convince people to try digital marketing. Fun fact: before the internet, ROAS didn't exist. Businesses have been marketing for thousands of years, probably. I mean, I don't know. When my business school didn't really go back to earlier than like the 1800s, but like television doesn't have ROAS. Email, direct mail doesn't have ROAS. Billboards don't have ROAS. That doesn't exist. Only in the world where you can be so selfish and myopic that you think you're the reason that people take actions, even though the customer journey is is decades long. And that probably be point number 5, is people think that their customer journey is when somebody sees your brand or your business. Like somehow when somebody walks into the Foot Locker to buy a sneaker, it's the reason they walked into the store is because of the salesperson. That they didn't know they had feet beforehand. They've never seen a shoe beforehand. That like somehow the salesperson made them aware enough to drive to the mall, get them into the store, and then tell them what product they wanted. Like the reason you bought a car was because the person that gave you the test drive. That's ridiculous. Like I'm 39. I got my first car 20 years ago. It was a used car, but I didn't know that cars existed because the used car lots guy sold it to me. So the concept that, it makes no sense, right? Like, for instance, I was running this brand 310 Nutrition, took them from about 18 million to 95 in about 20 months. And one of the big breakthroughs there was that, the customer journey, we didn't invent meal replacement shakes. If you wanted to lose weight, we didn't tell you, oh, by the way, there's this new concept of you not being happy with the way you look and the way you feel. We didn't invent the category. So people are already market aware. So there's that whole big thing. Number 6, people think the funnel is a real thing, which again makes no sense. We have to make somebody aware, and then you're going to overcome objections, and you're going to try to make the sale. Cool. So if I come to you ready to buy, and you say, "Great, I'm glad you're interested in buying. By the way, you have a problem. Now let me walk you through my whole funnel." That makes no sense. And you have no control over where anybody is in your funnel because you have no control of how they got there. And every single customer that you have has gotten there in a completely different way, that in the permutations of that are like a Sudoku puzzle the size of the universe in complexity. And it goes back decades. So the concept of a funnel outside of email flows doesn't make any sense. I could go on and on, but I feel like that's a solid top group. I will just take pot shots also at, you think cost caps matter? That's dumb for 95% of people. Folks think that attribution is real. It's complete nonsense. So that's also a hot button issue. And then I think that's a solid list. We'll leave 2 more on for maybe later on in the thing. I'll be like, you know what? That's number 9 and 10. But we'll save those for later.
Well, I'm impressed because I'll just say that I did not tell Charlie that I would be like, oh, give me top 10. I kind of said it off the cuff, half joking, but no, we went there.
Yeah, I do this a lot. I mean, I enjoy it, man. Like the old radio guys would be like, let's go.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. And so I guess the reverse of that is what are things that you believe or hold to be true? Because you kind of went through like these things are bullshit, right?
Yeah.
So and is that an interesting place for us to go with this conversation? I don't want to lead us. I really am interested in sort of going into like what are the sort of
let's go into the
pieces
things that I believe to be true, and then let's dive into point number 1 of like the creative testing. So,
sounds great.
Things that I believe to be true, because they're objective facts. Scientific method, good idea. Facebook is a machine learning algorithm. Facebook has more data points than Google and Amazon put together. Playing the lottery is a bad business model. And in an optimized CPM environment like Facebook and every other social media platform that is copying Facebook, like YouTube and TikTok and everything else, attention is earned. Above the fold placements are premium and earned and lower cost. And ultimately, the user experience controls the user flow is controlled by the user experience. Basically meaning the platform's best interest is to keep people engaged and happy.
Mm-hmm.
So what keeps them engaged and happy is what they're shown. Those are objective truths. And if we establish those objective truths and stack it with one other business principle, which is future cash flow at a profit is far more important than profit margin today. Like if you think of it as profit margin today is like being a hunter. I'm going to try to expend calories today to go kill something so that I can eat more calories than I expended. Got it. As long as you're not sick or it's bad weather or like, you just have a bad day, you're not going to die. Congratulations. That's a salesperson.
Mm-hmm.
Humanity lived for hundreds of thousands of years by hunting. If you're a farmer that knows how to establish future, in this analogy, cash flow. For instance, I can put a couple seeds in the ground and a stalk of corn grows and I get 4 pounds of fruit in 90 days. Well, I have a 90-day cash flow cycle. It's less effort for me to plant 100 ears of corn than it is for me to hunt. And I can get 400 pounds of food versus potentially dying. And I can do that every single day. So I can produce 400 pounds of food every single day in perpetuity. And as a result of farming, empires were built. So you can either live in a cave and hope not to die, i.e. focus on ROAS and profit margin, or you can build an empire, i.e. a business that actually has merit and value in their business model by focusing on future cash flow at a profit. So if we establish those as objective truths, which, I mean, you might want to argue the scientific method or whatever, go for it. I'm not neither here nor there. But let's establish that. And based on that, 99% of people are creative testing in a way that objectively makes no sense. Because they value the wrong metrics. They're asking the wrong questions. And ultimately, they define success poorly. And I think that's really the 3 biggest things that hold almost everybody back in almost every facet of life.
I'm curious, did your perspective on any of those elements change over time?
Absolutely. I mean, when I got started, Facebook was a PPC platform. It was an extension of Google Display. And then there was this thing that, by the way, at the time was 10 times worse than iOS 14 ever was, because iOS 14, for those that were using Facebook properly, was like a weird day or two. For those that use it improperly, was like end of days. Like cataclysmic end of days, like event that was 10 times the magnitude. Like that's like, oh, the iceberg hit the Titanic versus an asteroid killed the dinosaurs. The asteroid that killed the dinosaurs was Facebook coming on with the conversion objective. I think about 1/3 of agencies refused to like do conversion objectives. Just like so many people still today have refused to do CBO or dynamic creative or broad targeting. And they were put out of business. Entire floors of ad agencies were shuttered because people refused to work with how the platforms were designed to be used. They thought that our path to success is a denial of reality, and we're just going to fight the wind and complain when we're losing. And as far as I'm coming from, that's stupid. I don't have the victim mentality. And if I fail, it's my fault. And those folks didn't take that mentality, and they're out of business now. And I see very much similar things for the folks that avoid using dynamic ads, broad targeting, and CBO. Or I guess in this case, Advantage plus budget at the campaign level. That is your ultimate future. It'll take longer, but at the end of the day, there are mathematical certainties of reducing the quality of your inventory while increasing the price. At some point, you can't play the game anymore. So back in the day, like I knew by sheer force of will, I could sit down, I would get these like Trenti cold brews, no ice from Starbucks, and throw on some headphones. And just by clicking enough buttons enough times in the right way, I could produce an extra $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 in revenue profit a day. Like guaranteed. I knew I could do it. And then the system changed. And the bottom line is, if the technology changes, if the marketplace changes, and if the unit economics, the rules of the game change, and you still play by the old playbook, it's only your fault when you fail, and failure is almost a guarantee. There are a few exceptions where brands are so good that they can succeed even though their growth marketers have no idea what they're doing. I would say that's the cornerstone client of most people I see talking on stages about how great they are. It's like, okay, well, the operator built a 9-figure business. It's not because you were good at your job. It is like, for instance, I wasted $17 million of Activision's money one year. Call of Duty, still the #1 game. I wasted $17 million by being wrong in about a 45-day period. Didn't impact the bottom line. So that was a great showcase for me about how little of an impact that some of this stuff can have. Not to say that it's not important, and not to say those businesses aren't good. But the big change in my perspective was a really good operator can succeed even though a lot of the people in their business aren't doing A+ work. Honestly, you only need to really do 2 or 3 things well. Like Hexclad, for instance. Got Gordon Ramsay on it. Amazing offer construction, product quality, customer service, business operations, finances through the roof. I wouldn't let the person running those ads touch my business. I would never let them do that. And that's just a difference of opinion. Again, because I value all the things that we talked about earlier. Scientific method, facts. And I think that finances and business operations are more important than ego. That's my view of it. Zach is a good guy that runs that. I think he's got a good head on his shoulders. I just think there are a lot of people that didn't have to be good. And there are a lot of folks that have attached themselves to rocket ships in a bull market that define their success by how much credit for everybody else's work they can take.
Right. So I guess obviously with the Call of Duty example, what you were saying is it succeeded in spite of, at the time, what you were doing was wrong, right?
Yeah.
Where a great product, given like visibility and we'll call it a rabid audience, will just they extracted the success from it. So I am curious, like what did you get wrong when you say that you wasted that money?
With that, so Facebook was demoing this thing called Canvas ads, RIP Canvas ads. And I was full-heartedly into it. And to be fair, like everybody was sold, right? And it was basically this Facebook ad where when you clicked on it, it opened up like a mini site that you could navigate through. And the big call out was with that we would show it to customers and their fan base. They would interact with it. They'd get like bonuses and share things and have this great immersive environment because they said, oh, we have this great website, but people aren't really necessarily engaging with it. Let's put that really engaging website onto Facebook. And we spent through the moon on it and everybody was stoked until we looked at like cross-referencing the numbers and realizing that we were in the whole 8 figures on the investment. Yeah. Now, there's some argument to be made that like maybe there were other things that help with brand awareness and all this other stuff that we couldn't really factor out. And I wasn't nearly the marketer I am now in understanding contribution and omni-channel lift and all of that stuff. But yeah, I'd say we got 3 million back on a 20 million investment. So I kind of wasted $17 million and game still crushed.
I'm curious, like, how would you, because part of what you even led with was talking about, like, I mean, it's even on your shirt, right? You're talking like return on ad spend is bullshit. What you were just talking about was return on ad spend. So I'm curious, like, how do you see those as like, is that just an example where you knew exactly how much did not come out of it as opposed to when you're talking about,
that was an example of, in order to engage, like there are user logins and stuff inside of like, you know, the environments. So they could track very distinctly, this thing led to somebody with their user ID so they could get the power-ups and the bonuses and all of that stuff. It had to be tied to somebody. And the revenue built off of who was actually engaging with, like, if you look at the money made, the sales to the users that actually got the power-ups and stuff, it was almost nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
Relatively, I mean, it was a 7-figure win, but it was an 8-figure investment. So not great.
Got it.
So getting back to like creative testing then, right?
Yeah. And I even think even beyond just the creative part, it's even just like ways that people are even doing A/B testing. We'll call it around like anything with, and like even within their store, right?
Sure.
And I think, but go ahead.
I mean, I think there are differences in how you test inside of your store and how you test inside the environment. I think split testing as a concept after the click makes sense. And there are a lot of different ways to do that. And there are much better folks at me at CRO that you could absolutely use. You should talk to. My buddy Dylan at splittesting.com is probably one of the best in the world at that. What I would say, though, when you're inside of Facebook, split testing doesn't make any sense for several reasons. One, like, you're doing it one of 3 ways that all objectively hold no weight as soon as you apply, like, logical thinking to it. One of them would be, I'm going to launch 10 new ads a week and see what the winner is. Okay. So let's extrapolate that out. You're going to probably set up a separate campaign for testing that's going to have a budget of, let's say, 10% of your budget. Your overall net. I'm spending $1,000 a day, $100 is going to go here. And so you're splitting that up so that if it was going to complete even split, each ad would get like $10 a day, $70 at the end of it. Okay. So let's say it's a completely even test and you even force it out, 1 ad per ad set, like you're getting super like critical with everything. In an environment where you're optimizing for conversions and these ads are now competing with your control environment, do you know the impact that those ads have on your omni-channel marketing mix? No. There's no way in that environment you could say, well, this ad that spent $70 made my Google 3 times more efficient and like improved my email open rate. You have no idea. Which, by the way, those things are absolutely knowable if we use like the methods that I talk about. And I would say if you don't know those things, then the test is completely useless. So then we also have to say, let's say 2 of those ads are winners. So 80% of your money went to creating harm for your business. Okay. So now I'm saying what I'm going to do is make sure that I'm testing in a way where I don't understand the impact of it. And 80% of my money was something that did net negative for my bottom line. Okay. And then I have winners. All right. So what's the data set for the winner? A sale? 2 sales? Is an action that occurs twice enough for you to legitimately put the future of your business on? I would argue the answer to that is no. Like, a data set of 2 isn't a data set. Like, that's an anomaly. So statistical significance is thrown completely out the window. And so in that method, basically what you're doing is you're saying, I'm going to spend 80% of my money creating losers and then declare winners, not because I have any idea of how they impact my business, but based on some other metric. So that ultimately I can put at risk the successful things that I have based on an infinitesimal data set. To me, that makes no sense. Like you could never be successful at business doing that literally anywhere else in the world. Why would you try to do it here? Like, when you break it down, let me spend most of my money to acquire data that is not useful so that I can put the rest of my business at risk based on no information. That model, stupid. And you could say, well, I'm going to do actually 50 ads. I'm going to do 30%. Like, how much worse are you going to amplify the problem? And also, if it does get a sale, is it because the ad was good? Or is it because it was the last thing that happened to be shown in a customer journey? Like, you have no idea. So that's one problem with it. And another problem with that at a larger scale is people say, well, I'm just going to test a bunch of ads constantly. Like, I see this mantra that's going out there that makes no sense and is causing so much harm, where they're saying it's all about just volume of creative testing. The way I overcome my instability is by testing more and more ads. Let's unpack that. I am lacking stability in my business. Basically meaning I am not seeing a consistent flow of similar customer into my funnel that I know works. So my solution is going to be to draw a small amount of tons and tons and tons of different types of people, which is basically creating more instability. And I'm going to overcome my issues by amplifying the instability, because maybe I get a couple wins right away. Like, I don't understand how that makes sense. Like, if you know this is the type of customer, I spend X amount of money, I make X amount of money, CPA times COGS times frequency of purchases divided from the LTV. I know if I spend $125, I'm going to get 2.5 sales worth $200. Every time I start this customer journey, it's worth $75. Why am I going to try to solve my problems by attracting a million different other types of people? Like, that doesn't make sense, right? Like, the Gap isn't throwing up hot topic merchandise in the window to try to attract new customers. Like, that there's no business in the world where if you say that's the path to success and you say it out loud, that it actually makes any sense. And yet it's the overwhelming consensus of, again, folks that don't know how Facebook works, that aren't treating the scientific method and machine learning platform as like facts, and instead are trying to ultimately prioritize volume of work over quality. And nobody in this business is paid for how hard they work. And I'd say the third part to this that I want to get to real quick is that the definitions of success are completely wrong. So remember I said it's about asking the wrong questions. So it's like asking the wrong question of like, which one of these ads is a winner? That's not the question you should be asking. The question should be more along the lines of, what is the best type of attention that I can earn and buy, and how do I get more of that so that I can amplify what works in my business? Because ultimately Facebook's a business model amplification device. And please don't be testing landing pages and ads in the same environment while also changing everything else. So you're basically changing the store layout, changing the type of people you bring into the store, and having any clue when things go well or poorly why anything happened. You're changing variables on both sides of the equation at a regular basis at very high volume. There's no way you're going to be able to define anything. And then it's about, defining success or the metrics in the wrong way, right? So looking at the wrong metrics and defining success in the wrong way. So we're saying success here is, well, the ad was the winner. Is that a winner? I'd say we only know if it's a winning ad if we know how it impacts our omnichannel marketing environment. If you don't know, then how can you declare it a winner? Because it got a few purchases, which brings us to the third part, which is the metrics. And people use silly things like ROAS to evaluate metrics. Like you can somehow control how much money somebody spends. Like maybe somebody drops $20, somebody else drops 100, and somebody else drops 1,000. Is the ad the reason somebody dropped $1,000? No. Is that replicatable behavior? No. Will the ROAS be amazing? Yes. Will the ROAS be great if I send out an email of 99% off and then Facebook hits it at the full AOV? Of course. So that doesn't make any sense. There's no way to control for that environment. So the metrics that people value don't make sense. Volume of purchases through attribution, fine. But what does that do? Oh, I got a ton of sales. But when I look at my cash register, I made one extra sale. My fulfillment team didn't get 100 new orders. I just have a much bigger crossover of email and search and Facebook because I'm using Advantage Plus and retargeting and cost caps on some brand new ad that's targeting the bottom funnel folks that are already being hit up by everything else. That doesn't make any sense. And then they go around they go down the rabbit hole of saying, well, cost per click is up, so this ad is bad. Cost per click doesn't matter. I mean, obviously a $20 cost per click is probably worse than a $1 cost per click, but you would see that in the impact of the blended CPA in the business. They say CTR, well, that matters. And I say, well, no, that doesn't make any sense at all either. I say, well, why doesn't click-through rate matter? Well, click-through rate is a fraction. How many clicks divided by how many impressions? If your ad is good or delivers a positive user experience, and as such, your CPMs are lower, then the denominator in the fraction, the number of impressions is going to be a lot higher. Do you want 5 clicks out of 1,000, or do you want 8 clicks out of 3,000? If the cost is the same, I'd probably rather have the 8 clicks, knowing that I'm also getting 3 times the incremental lift to all my other marketing channels. I would much rather have the lower CTR. As a matter of fact, a higher CTR is probably a bad thing. It means your ads are only appealing to a certain very small group of people. That probably means it's way less incremental to your business. So at a very high level, the way people are testing is complete nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had anybody be able to defend any of those challenges that I've had. And I've been asking people for 5 years why they do it that way. And the best answer is, well, it worked for somebody else. And my question is, well, how do they define success? And it's usually in some nonsense marketer ego forward metric. Or well, that business is doing great. I'm okay. Proactives was successful doing this methodology, but it's also a Guthrie Rinker business doing 100 million a year. Was it the Facebook ads that made it work? No. So that's the big disconnect that I see a lot.
Yeah, I know that you've spoken about this a lot in the past, and I'll put a link to at least one of your talks that I'd seen in the show notes because I thought it was really, really good.
Well, thank you.
I think you gave the trailer right there.
Yes.
I think my
Sure,
takeaway
the trailer
was
might have been as long as the video.
No, but I think what was interesting was my takeaway from that, and even you just reinforced it now, is and again, I'm not a Facebook ads guy, right? So I'm saying this from a place of ignorance. So I could be, but based off what you said, it made a lot of sense, which was if you're first off, part of the issue is scale. If you're investing $10 across 20 ads or whatever, you're getting the actual results you're seeing are so small, whether it's 1 purchase or 2 purchases. and then you're basically saying, all right, now we're going to take all this budget and apply it on that, the results will be different in an environment where they're artificially small numbers versus you're saying, now we're going to put $100,000 behind that. Is that
Yeah.
more or less the gist? And then
Yeah, it's
as
like if you're like the greatest athlete in your high school and it's like a magnet science school and you're a future NBA player, maybe that's not realistic. Like, understand the environment that you're in, right? And if that ad crushes it $20 a day, do you trust it at 2,000?
Right.
Probably not. And so I would never test that way. It makes no sense. Instead, just to make it really quick, like, the way to make it work is get your entire Facebook ad account down to a single campaign, optimizing towards the single best offer for your business model and the unit economics for your company. Have a control environment of your best 5 ads or so, and have 1 or 2 dynamic creative tests leveraging 3-2-2 method. You can probably look down below. Maybe you'll link a video to me like building those things live and other things about creative testing. And then the ad has to earn spend. So it has to be good enough for Facebook to want to show to people. So if it earns spend, what happens to your omni-channel marketing efforts in the following days? Say this ad earns spend, like it goes from $1 to like 1,000 a day. What happens to your blended cost per acquisition in omni-channel fashion? If it goes down, that ad's net positive for your business. It could go down and have the worst ROAS and CPA ever. Probably what's happening is it's massively amplifying the volume of opportunity for search or Amazon or sign up for emails and stuff. It completely makes sense because we have this thing of like an ecosystem of ads. It might get a spend and it might have a phenomenal ROAS and CPA and you're stoked. And then you look and your blended CPA goes through the roof, which happens all the time also. Because that ad is just hitting the same exact people that are already in the funnel, because who wants to see your ads? The folks that are ready to buy anyway. So the same ad is getting attributed to multiple channels. If that ad earns spend, regardless of the unit economics of that ad, because remember, like CPR, CTR, CPC, CPM, CPA even doesn't really matter. If it earns a larger percent of spend, and ultimately changes your investment portfolio, and as a result, the unit economics of your business improve, it's net positive. If you cannot get down to that binary yes or no answer, your system is too complex. And if it doesn't earn spend, then it didn't earn spend. It's not good enough. And you have to do something else.
And from my understanding, like this is, I was saying, this is you leveraging what Facebook system's really good at, right?
Yeah.
And that's also the value. Yeah.
And also leaning into things that you have no control over. Like, you can't say this is my best ad, show it to everybody. Like, there are microtransactions. Like, anytime somebody hits refresh, like, you can't literally be in there doing an auction for every single penny, for every impression on every single ad in all of your ad accounts. That's completely unrealistic. So ultimately, I don't care if you think the ad is better. I don't care if the unit economics work. If the machine won't deliver it, then it's not good enough. And ultimately, if you say, well, look, I know that it works. So what I'm going to do is find 10 or 20 things that I know work. What happens then? You have a massively elaborate system that every time you stack more and more complexity on it, your ability to extract actionable insight drops like exponentially. What's the realistic outcome of that situation? Honestly, it's you have a system set up so that you have no idea what's going on. That is extraordinarily high touch and impossible to manage meaningfully. Where you ultimately have said that you're smarter than the machine. And as a result, your results are probably going to get worse and worse and worse, because the reason the ad isn't earning spend is because Facebook doesn't want to show it to people. And Facebook doesn't want to show it to people because, again, their business model is the retention of attention for profit. If your ad doesn't earn spend, it's because it's a liability to that business model. And if your best practice is to disrespect your business partners, odds are it's going to be hard for you to be successful in business. That's my 2 cents. And you can argue with that, and I would love to hear feedback, but I've yet to have anybody come back with that. Basically, what they're saying is like, I don't talk to fundamentalists or whatever. I'm like, we're not even giving my opinion. Other than I think it's going to be hard for you if your unit economics get worse every single day. It's probably going to be hard to be successful. That's
Can
my
you clarify
opinion.
what you meant by can you clarify what you meant around, I understood philosophically what you were saying, but I think, again, coming from someone who does not deal with this day in, day out.
Sure.
When you were talking about disrespecting your partner, et cetera, what you were talking about was essentially serving something up that Facebook didn't like. And by that, did you mean that it was interesting to customers and they would take them away from Facebook? Because part of what I heard you saying is Facebook wants you to stay on Facebook, right? But these are ads where the whole point is to get them off of Facebook.
Facebook wants you to be happy with your experience on Facebook.
Got it. Okay.
If that ad takes you away from Facebook, fine. If it takes you away from Facebook and they have a positive user experience on your site, they buy the product, they like the product, they comment well about it, and they come back to Facebook again, every single one of your ads might make somebody click away the second it happens. Mm-hmm. And if their life is phenomenally better and they constantly come back to Facebook because of it, you're an asset. So taking somebody off of Facebook is not a bad thing at all.
Okay.
It's if you mistreat them so that ultimately, let me put it another way. If your Facebook feed was full of ads where it was hard DR sales and it was just really annoying, and every time you clicked on an ad, you had the worst customer experience ever,
mm-hmm.
How likely are you to come back to Facebook?
I see what you're saying.
Versus, I had an amazing experience. I got what I wanted done out of it, and I got these ads that gave me products I wanted to see. It was built-in content I enjoy engaging with. And I had a good experience with the brands that I dealt with. And you're like, this is great. If you lean into the experience, social media is designed to be the most pleasurable and desirable place that you can end up when it comes to engaging with media. Right? It's like if your television, every time you turned it on, knew exactly the show you wanted to watch, and every commercial is for stuff you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
That's Facebook. That's Instagram. So that part of it, I would hold the contention. And that's why.
That makes sense. And I'm curious if anyone wants to learn more about this, because I think you go down these topics all the time. What's the best place for them to learn more?
They can check out thesharperschool.com. Also, I got my app down there. You can find me on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Twitter, Facebook. If there's a social media platform, I'm on it, posting multiple pieces of content every single day. This is what I do. And I enjoy the hell out of it. Clearly, I haven't been able to shut up for more than 30 seconds at any time. And I'm just getting warmed up. I could do this all night long. This is great. But yeah, I think the one other thing that I didn't mention today that I really want to kind of drive home, because I want to be less technical, and I think you were kind of getting there, and I may have cut you off, and for that I'm sorry. When we talk about attention is earned, remember that what you buy with Facebook ads, what you buy with any advertising, is attention.
Mm-hmm.
You're never buying results. Your business is how you monetize attention. And with that being said, what you're trying to do is get a desirable volume and quality of attention. And ultimately, when you work simpatico with your business partners, things are probably going to work out better for you. And what that really means is, if you make content that your target market wants to see, that content will be shown to them more often and for cheaper. If your ad goes out to 1,000 people and 500 people hate it and 500 people love it, the next 1,000 people that see your ad are going to look a lot like those that have shown an interest in your content, and their behavior was one that met Facebook's business objectives. If it also meets yours, then the Facebook engineering team has become part of your marketing department. And that's the ultimate goal. And at the end of the day, what matters most is when you open up Instagram, for instance, and there's an ad as like the second post. That post is shown to you because you've given a lot of signals. That post is also much cheaper to show. The CPM on that post, the cost of inventory might be 25%, 50%, 75% cheaper than the ad that's shown 10 minutes into a doom scroll. Because the ad that's shown much later, Facebook is burying because they're like, look, this person is terrible for our business model, but they wanted to drop money, so we'll spend it for them. And then you say, oh, well, you know, the ads aren't really working for me. And really what it means is, if your ads aren't working, it means either you're attracting the wrong type of attention, or your ads might be attracting the right type of attention, but they're so undesirable as an experience that there's only a small group of people that want to see it. And at the end of the day, that brings us to the third point, which is there has to be a respect for your business partners. If you want to get the biggest lie being told is that Facebook is getting more and more expensive. The only people saying that are the people that have no idea how it works. For me, for instance, in my experience with my businesses, you know, I have 8-9 figure companies. I teach a lot. My Facebook advertising costs have come down every single year for the last like 3-4 years. iOS 14 was good for me. And
why
if
was
your
it good
Facebook
for you?
advertising costs are rising, then maybe you should change who you're listening to and start looking to the folks that are seeing success instead of the folks that are preaching victim mentalities. Because that's a point of weakness. And honestly, I ain't got time for that. Like, you should be seeing more success with less stress and creating jobs and opportunities for other people instead of playing the victim because you're mistreating your business partners.
What was the net positive that came out for you with iOS 14?
I think the easiest part of it, 3 things. First, the people that misuse Facebook, they lost. I have such a competitive advantage over everybody else. Because other people are now valuing the wrong information, asking the wrong questions, and defining success in the wrong way. So a lot of the things that were legitimate competition for me just disappeared. Like, quickly. Like, everybody said, oh man, Facebook's going off the deep end. I have to pull back on spending. Like, all of this great inventory just opened up. It's like I'm a marauder through the countryside, and all of a sudden the kings and queens just bolted. And I'm just like, hey, there's my kingdom, just, you know, whatever. Like, conquesting became incredibly easy. I think another thing is that it meant that the machine has only gotten better since then at prioritizing the user experience more and more and more. Because you had more and more people shifting into that mentality. The data set that the machine learning uses in order to get better, the AI is now seeing a larger percentage of that data set being net positive for the AI's business model. So it gets better at delivering that end result for the folks that use it. So basically, there's way less poison in the well. So the water's a lot cleaner. And I think the last piece of it is just that I think ultimately the user experience on the platform has changed a little bit because of the reactions that marketers had to have to the way that they treated it. And as a result, consumer behavior is being conditioned in a way, kind of building off of step 2, where if you meet the needs of the machine, there's this like feedback loop, right? If the machine's getting better and better at giving people positive experiences, and as a result, people are giving you more and more data of what those positive experiences are. And so it's just, I will say this. I've been running ads. I've done over $1 billion in rev of hundreds and hundreds of millions of ads for brands on 6 continents. Nobody in Antarctica yet, but we'll see. No students or brands there yet, but always opportunity. It legitimately hasn't been this easy. And I've done it for over a decade. Today is the easiest day in Facebook I've ever had. And if that's not the way that you view it, I'd love to change the way that you look at it, because the negative impact of people that preach other things is the safety and well-being of your family and a reduction in the opportunity to create opportunity for others. Jobs are being lost, dreams are being crushed, and people are having to give up because the folks that they rely on to amplify their business are negligibly inept at their jobs. And for me, that's the motivation. And I got that's what moves for me. Like, if I can, now I got like 10 years, almost 11 years clean and sober. I try to make amends every day. And like, if my number one way of amends is to make people achieving their dreams easier so they can create opportunities for other people, because I somehow got lucky. I should be dead. I went from $10 an hour to buying a place in Chelsea this summer as just like an investment property. Like, everybody deserves that.
I think that's a great message to even to end that on. I think one question I like to ask at the end of these episodes is, do you have a big ask that you can put out into the universe? Like, is there one thing that if it were to happen would transform your business or your life?
Yeah, I mean, I think my biggest ask is that I would love for folks to go to the people that they are learning from, go to the people that they will work with, and ask why. Get the why for everything as deep as possible. And if it doesn't make sense to you, to challenge it aggressively. I think, like, it's like going to the mechanic and he's like, oh yeah, this is going to be $7,000 because the Burger is like whatever. Like, why?
Right.
Like, give me an answer. The amount of abuse and disrespect that defines the standard operating procedure of the digital marketing universe is staggering. The stat that makes it stand out is like over 95% of agencies fail over 95% of their clients. I don't think it's because there's less than 1 in 20 businesses that have any hope.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's because the vast majority of people are absolute dog shit at what they do. And that's the livelihoods of our fellow citizens that's being abused. And in my opinion, if that's your standard operating procedure, go fuck yourself.
I'm curious, besides yourself, who are some of the best people in the space?
Yeah. I think there are some really good experts. I think it depends on what you're trying to do. And the best folks that I love are folks that I have come in and teach classes in Disruptor School. And so I'll go down that list. Like, Sarah Levinger, I think, is the best in the world of consumer psychology. She has a master class inside Disruptor School. I'm not trying to just talk my own stuff, but there's a reason why I asked her.
Mm-hmm.
My buddy Raul at ecom-ads.com is one of the best folks I know in the Google ad space, especially to make Google ads an incremental, to have Facebook and Google be complementary and congruent.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dylan Ander is probably the best split test CRO guy. He owns splittesting.com, if that means anything. Like, that's the guy. My buddy Matthew Larson is probably one of the best converting landing page designers I know. Dara Denny is a great YouTuber that makes accessing this from an entry-level piece easy enough to bite into. And I've been enjoying her message change and evolve, and like, it's been amazing. I think as a very short list, those men and women are who I would stand out to initially. My buddy Jesse does is a great thing. He's one of the best I know at agency ops. Marina Randolph, who doesn't teach at all, but she's probably the best president, the best integrator. If you look at Rocket Fuel, the visionary and integrator, she's the best integrator I've ever worked with.
Mm.
She's a fucking gangster. Like, it was amazing. There are a lot of great men and women out there.
Oh, that's awesome.
I would say the vast majority of them aren't the people that are on stages.
Right.
They're the folks that make the people on stage look good, and the people whose work they take credit for.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were to go on with people on stage and ask them why, eventually they're just going to give up this person's name.
Right.
Look for those people.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Any last parting words? I appreciate you coming on the show.
Other than this, man, just like, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. I feel like I've exercised the demons a little bit today. Like, I'm going to go to bed with a smile on my face, and hopefully one person is in a better place because of this. And I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to, like, you know, I'm just some stranger on the internet, but it's great to see every single day I get DMs from folks whose lives are different now than they were 3 months ago, a year ago. And every bit of these things that folks like you allow folks like me to contribute helps. And that is an opportunity and a privilege that I do not take lightly. So for that, I want to say thanks a lot. And yeah, if anybody ever has any questions on anything, my wife says I have my phone religiously attached to me surgically. And I will probably respond to anything and everything.
That's it. We'll put your phone in the show notes. We'll put your phone number in the show notes.
Yeah. This thing is already lit up with like a million notifications from DMs and stuff. Like, just since we started, it's like,
funny.
It's like, this is since we started.
Oh my goodness. Oh, it's probably one of the many Slack groups.
So I'll get through all of it.
I will say, just you and I had met in person serendipitously. I don't think you remembered me, but like when we connected through WhatsApp, I remembered you because one night you and I had both not been able to get into the same party. It's at Shop Talk. It was and I recognized you because I thought you were hilarious. And then from that point on, I just saw you around the show a few times. And I was like, I wonder who that guy is. And then happened to notice you when we were in that WhatsApp group. And then I mentioned the podcast and you commented, and I was like, shit, of all the people who I've randomly seen here but have not interacted with, I was like, Charlie is one of those people.
There we go.
So that was funny. And I think just this episode even happening was serendipitous in like so many degrees. So thanks so much, man.
Those are the greatest things.
Hell yeah.
Like if you had put out your best idea of the plan for going to Shop Talk, mine would not have included doing this, and I'm so glad that we got to do it. Because I learned a long time ago, I'm a lot better at following what I'm supposed to do and just being a crazy person, and instead of trying to take control over everything. Because my best definition of success is far less than I've achieved.
Amen.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
all right. I gotta go. I'll talk to you later. Thank you so much. I